Shiva Deki Aila Dvaipayani. Synonyms, unless anyone else would like to sing. Gokarne, in the place named Gokarna. Shiva, the temple of Lord Shiva. Deki, seeing. Aila, came. Dvaipayani, to Dvaipayani. Surparaka Tirte, to the holy place named Surparaka. Aila, came. Nyasi Siromani, the best of the sannyasis. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Translation. Would you like to read the translation, Jaishnav? Do you get the mic? After seeing Panchaspara, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu went to Gokarna. While there, he visited the temple of Lord Shiva. Okay, go ahead.
After seeing Panchapsara, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Gokarna. While there, he visited the temple of Lord Shiva and then he went to Dvaipayani. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the crown jewel of all sannyasis, then went to Surparaka Tirtha.
So these verses are describing Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's tour of South India. So it's very exciting because so many places are mentioned. Purport. Gokarna is situated in North Kannada, in the Karnataka state. It is about 33 miles southeast of Karwar. This place is very famous for the temple of Lord Shiva, known as Mahabaleshvara. Hundreds and thousands of pilgrims come to see this temple. How many pilgrims come? Surparaka is about 26 miles north of Bombay. In the Maharashtra province near Bombay is a district known as Thana and a place known as Sopara. Surparaka is mentioned in the Mahabharata, Shanti Parva, chapter 41, verses 66 to 67. Text 228. Kolapure Lakshmi Deki Dehena. Gola, hello? Shira Bhagavati. Langa Ganesha Deki Deka Chora Parvati. Synonyms: Kolapure, at Kolapura. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. Deki, seeing. Dekhena, he visited. Shira Bhagavati, the temple of Shira Bhagavati. Langa Ganesha, the deity Langa Ganesh. Deki, seeing. Dekhena, he sees. Chora, Parvati, the goddess Parvati, who is known as a thief. Would you like to read the translation? Can you read the translation? Say your name, please. There we go. What's your name?
Nainanvita.
Say it again.
Nainanvita.
Okay.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then visited the town of Kolapura, where he saw the goddess of fortune in the temple of
Kshira Bhagavati and saw Langa Ganesh in another temple known as Chora Parvati.
Very nice. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Kolhapur is a town in the Maharashtra province, formerly known as Bombay Pradesh. Formerly, Kolhapur was a native state, and it is bordered on the north by the district of Santara, on the east and south by the district of Belagaum, and on the west by the district of Ratnagiri. In Kolhapur there is a river named Urna. From the Bombay Gazette, it is understood that there were about 250 temples there, one of which 6 are very famous. These are Ambabai, or Mahalakshmi Mandira, Vitoba Mandir, Teblai Mandir, Mahakali Mandir, Piranga or Prachanirga Mandir, and Valamana Mandir. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning the Bombay Gazette. And Srila Prabhupada was very pleased to read that the citizens were becoming so interested in temples and reporting about spiritual life. And the Bombay Gazette was started in like 1789, and it used to be called the Bombay Herald. But they changed it because the government wanted to get involved in the reporting. So they changed it to the Bombay Gazette. So Srila Prabhupada here is quoting it because he was very aware of opportunities for encouraging and preaching and helping others to understand their spiritual identity. So he's very proud that the Bombay Gazette is reporting that there's over 250 temples. So text 282. If you like, we can all sing it together. Tata haite pandara rupe aila gora chandra vitala thakur deki paila ananda. Synonyms. Tata haite. From there, Pandarapure to Pandarapura. Aila came Gaurachandra, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Vitala Thakur, the deity known as Vitala Deki. Deki, seeing. Paila, got. Ananda, great happiness. Translation. Tulsi, would you like to read the translation, please?
Where he happily saw the temple of Vitala Thakur.
Thank you. Purport. The city of Pandarapura is situated on the river Bhima. It is said that Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu initiated Tukaram when he visited Pandarapura, and thus Tukaram became his disciple. Tukaram Acharya became very famous in the Maharashtra province, and he spread the Sankirtan movement all over the province. The Sankirtan party belonging to Tukaram is still very popular in Bombay, and throughout the province of Maharashtra, Tukaram's book is known as Abhanga. His Sankirtan party exactly resembles the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sankirtan parties, for they chant the holy name of the Lord with mridanga and kartals. Now this is a very important last paragraph, last sentence, where Srila Prabhupada says, because he's explaining to us so many things, so many secrets. The Lord Vitala Dev mentioned in this verse is a form of Lord Vishnu with 2 hands. He is Narayan. So we have a 2-handed Vishnu called Vitaladev. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning the direct disciple of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What's his name? Tukaram. Tukaram is a very great saintly person, a very great spiritual master. And he was very famous in the Maharashtra province. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu empowered him to spread the Sankirtan movement all over the province. And Prabhupada's writing that it's still very popular in Bombay. And also Tukaram's writings, he would write poetry. It was called Abhanga. And specifically in his Abhanga writings, Srila Tukaram Maharaj would speak about modern day ills and dangers, and he would philosophize everything in poetry. And they were very, very popular, and he really outreached to everyone to join the Sankirtan party. And many, many years ago, I saw a movie of Tukaram. It was so wonderful. It was black and white. It was made in India, and it had subtitles, English subtitles. And it was showing the life of Tukaram. And it showed him in his Grihastha ashram, how he was always chanting and singing and writing. And then he would go off to the hills, and he would meditate. And so when he'd go off to the hills, his wife was at home cooking, so she'd pack him up a really nice lunch, and she'd bring it out to him. And when she went there, she would sit down and he'd be absorbed. And so finally he would see that she was there, and she would say, "You can just worship your black face. I'm going to worship you. You are my God. You are my husband." And, you know, he would just sing and so absorbed. He didn't mind that she, you know, wasn't so attracted to Krishna, because she was so favorable to him and the family. So it was a very adorable movie about Tukaram. And then one of the last scenes in the movie is that, Tukaram would always tell his wife, "Well, I'm going traveling." So she would say, okay, come back. When you're done, come back. But this time he said to her, "Oh, dear wife," he said, "I am going back to the spiritual world." She said, "Okay, you go and come back, because like usual, he would go and come back. But this time, actually, he was going back to Godhead. So the movie shows, and I don't know how authentic it is, because I don't know. So it shows a Vaikuntha plane, an airplane, and it shows Tukaram boarding the plane. And so then a neighbor comes rushing over to his wife and says, "Your husband is getting on the plane. Go, go, go." So she drops everything because she realizes, something's up. She drops everything. She runs to the center square. The airplane appeared in the center square of the village. And there she sees her husband getting on this huge Vaikuntha airplane. And she runs to the plane, and it starts taking off, and she's hanging onto the plane, and she faints because her husband went back to Godhead, and she was there in the kitchen cooking, telling him to come back, come back. So that's what happened. Tukaram ki jai. So text 283. I'll say one line, you say one line. Prema Vesha Kaila Bahuta Kirtanartana. Tahan Eka Vipra Tanre Kaila Nimantrana. Prema Devesh. Oh, synonyms. Prema Devesh. in the great ecstasy of love. Kaila, performed. Bahuta, much. Kirtana nartana, chanting and dancing. Tahan, there. Eka, one. Vipra, Brahmana. Tanre, unto him. Kaila, did. Nimantrana, invitation. Translation. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu chanted and danced in various ways, as usual. A Brahmana, seeing him in ecstatic love, was very pleased and invited the Lord to his home for lunch. Text 284. Bahuta adare prabhu ke bishaka karaila. Bhiksha karitaha eka subhavarta paila. Bahuta, synonyms, Bahuta adare. With great love, Prabhu ke, unto Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhiksha karala, offered lunch. Bhiksha kari, after finishing his lunch. Tata, there. Eka, one. Subhavarta, auspicious news. Paila, got. Translation. Jaishnav, would you like to read? The Brahmins offered. Text 284.
The Brahman offered Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu food with great respect and love. After finishing his lunch, the Lord received auspicious news.
So it's very important how the Brahmanas are always cooking and offering food to the Lord. And so this Brahmana understood, here's Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So with great love and respect, he offered lunch to the Lord. And the Lord received auspicious news. I read in one scripture, I guess in the Mahabharata, that the Brahmanas, when they cook, they always cook one savory. Every day they have a savory cooked in ghee. So there we go. Text 285. Jaishnav, can you lead it? Because you're good at the tune. Madhava Purira Shishya Shri Ranga Puri Nama
Sigrama Vipragrihe Karana Vishrama.
Segrame Vipragrehi Karana Vishrama. Synonyms. Madhava Purira Shishya, a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. Shri Ranga Puri. Shri Ranga Puri. Nam, named. Segrame, in that village. Vipragrehi, in the house of a Brahmana. Karena Vishrama, rest. Translation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu received word that Sri Ranga Puri, one of the disciples of Sri Madhavendra Puri, was present in that village at the home of a Brahmana. So that was the good news. Jaishnav, do you want to read the next 286? The Suniya.
Niya Jalila Prabhu Tandra Deki Bare.
Nita Papu Danre Deki Bare.
Vipragrihe Vasi Ache Dekila Tanhare.
Vipragrehi Vasi. Synonyms. Suniya, hearing. Chalila, went. Prabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Tanre, him. Dekibare, to see, Vipragrihe, at the house of the Brahmana, Vasi, sitting, Achena, was, Dekila, saw, Tanhare, him. Translation: hearing this news, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu immediately went to see Sri Rangapuri at the Brahmana's home. Upon entering, the Lord saw him sitting there. So here's Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu traveling and preaching in South India, inspiring everyone to increase their service, to develop their service. So Jaishnav, do you want to sing again for 287? Prema Veshe.
Prema Veshe Caritamrta Danda Paranama Ashupuluka Kampa Sarvange Padigama
Ashupulaka Kampas. Synonyms: Prema Dveshe, in ecstatic love. Kare, does. Tanre, unto him. Dandaparatnam, obeisances, falling flat. Ashru, tears. Pulaka, jubilation. Kampa, trembling. Sarva ange, all over the body. Pade, there was. Ghama, perspiration. Translation: as soon as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu saw Sri Rangapuri, he immediately offered him obeisances in ecstatic love, falling flat on the ground. The symptoms of transcendental transformation were visible, namely tears, jubilation, trembling, and perspiration. Text 288.
Dekhiya Vismita Haila Sri Rangapuri Mana
Dekhiya Vismita.
Utaha Shri Pada Bali Bali Lavachana.
Synonyms: Dekhiya, seeing. Vishmita, astonished. Haila, became. Sri Rangapurira, of Sri Rangapuri. Mana, the mind. Uthaha, get up. Sri Pada, your holiness. Bali, saying. Balila, vachana, began to speak. Translation: upon seeing Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu in such an ecstatic mood, Sri Rangapuri said, "Your Holiness, please get up." Text 289.
Shri Pada Dara Mora Gosha Nirsambhada Taha Vina Anyatra Nayi Pamara Andha.
Synonyms: Sri Pada, oh, your holiness. Dara, you hold. More, my. Gosanira, with Sri Madhavendrapuri. Sambandha, relationship. Tata, Vina, without him. Anyatra, elsewhere. Nahi, there is not. A, this. Premara, of ecstasy. Gandha, fragrance. Translation: your holiness is certainly related to Sri Madhavendrapuri, without whom there is no fragrance of ecstatic love. Purport: Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur remarks that up to the advent of His Holiness Sripad Lakshmipati Tirtha, it was the system in the disciplic succession of Madhavacharya to worship Lord Krishna alone. After Srila Madhavendra Puri, worship of both Radha and Krishna was established. For this reason, Sri Madhavendra Puri is accepted as the root of worship in ecstatic love. Unless one is connected to the disciplic succession of Madhavendra Puri, there is no possibility of awakening the symptoms of ecstatic love. The word Gosani is significant in this connection. The spiritual master who is fully surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and has no business other than the Lord's service is called the best of the Paramahamsas. A Paramahamsa has no program for sense gratification. He is interested only in satisfying the senses of the Lord. One who has control of the senses in this way is called a Gosani or a Goswami, master of the senses. The senses cannot be controlled unless one is engaged in the service of the Lord. Therefore, the bona fide spiritual master who has full control over his senses engages 24 hours a day in the Lord's service. He can therefore be addressed as Gosani or Goswami. The title Goswami cannot be inherited, but can be given only to a bona fide spiritual master. There were 6 great Goswamis of Vrindavan: Srila Rupa, Sanatan, Bhatta Raghunath, Sri Jiva, Gopal Bhatta, and Das Raghunath. So what are the names of the 6 Goswamis? Sri Rupa, Sanatan, Bhatta Raghunath, Sri Jiva, Gopal Bhatta, and Das Raghunath. And none of them inherited the title of Goswami. All the Goswamis of Vrindavan were bona fide spiritual masters situated on the highest platform of devotional service, and for that reason they were called Goswamis. All the temples of Vrindavan were certainly started by the 6 Goswamis. Wow. All the temples of Vrindavan were certainly started by the 6 Goswamis. Later, the worship in the temples was entrusted to some householder disciples of the Goswamis. And since then, the hereditary title of Goswami has been used. However, only one who is a bona fide spiritual master, expanding the cult of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the Krishna consciousness movement, and who is in full control of his senses, can be addressed as a Goswami. Unfortunately, the hereditary process is going on. Therefore, at the present moment, in most cases, the title is being misused due to ignorance of the word's etymology. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is speaking of the 6 Goswamis and how they had complete control over their senses. And they were non-envious, and they were equal to the gentle and the ruffians. And Prabhupada said many times, he said, when a person is not envious, they are in the spiritual world. It is only envy that keeps us bound up to the shackles of the material world. So Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's disciples and their disciples and their disciples are teaching us Krishna consciousness, how to control our senses, how to be engaged 24 hours, how to chant constantly. And Srila Prabhupada uses the word Paramahamsa. And Srila Prabhupada was very proud of his disciples. And he would marry them and then send them off to preach somewhere. For example, the 6 Grihastas and little Saraswati, who were sent to England, UK, to preach Krishna consciousness in UK. And so Shyamsundar Prabhu was so smart that he made friends with George Harrison. He even arranged for the girls to make a cake for George, and it was in the shape of an apple, because their studios in the UK, they're called Apple Studios. So George was very taken with the love and the kindness. And so he would visit the temple. He helped to sponsor, I think he totally sponsored Bhaktivedanta Manor. Very great devotee. And he was a beautiful poet, sang so many beautiful songs. And he said to Prabhupada, he said, Srila Prabhupada, should I join the temple? Be a temple devotee? Prabhupada said, no. He said, you are singing, you are preaching. He said, write songs about Krishna. So he was very blessed. And when he came to visit Srila Prabhupada, George Harrison came in, offered his obeisances, sat on the floor. So Srila Prabhupada was sitting on a chair, and so Prabhupada said to him, come sit here beside me. And George said, oh, Prabhupada, I can't. I said, you're my spiritual master. Prabhupada said, if your spiritual master says sit here, you sit here. So George got up and he sat beside Prabhupada. And then they spoke. George asked many questions. And then Prabhupada took off his ring and he gave it to George. He said, this is for you. And again, he said, well, Prabhupada, should I get initiated? And Prabhupada said, no, you're already son of Hari, George Harrison. So that was every interaction Srila Prabhupada had with every disciple, every well-wisher, was so filled with joy and happiness. So Prabhupada would call his disciples that he sent to UK, he said, they are Paramahamsa Grihastas. He said, they have everything and they're Paramahamsa. So would you like to sing text 29? Is it okay with you, Vaishnav? You're okay with that? Okay.
Tabali Prabhu ke utana kaila lingana.
Are you on text 29? I'm sorry, 290. Yeah. Sorry, 290. Are you on text 290? Sorry. Eta Bali.
Eta Bali Prabhu ke utana kaila lingana.
Eta Bali.
Gala gali kare dunhe kare na krandana.
Synonyms. Eta Bali. Saying this. Prabhu ke. Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Utana. Lifting up. Kaila, did. Alingana, embracing. Galagali, shoulder to shoulder. Kari, doing. Dunhe, both of them. Karena, do. Krandana, crying. Translation, after saying this, Sri Rangapuri lifted Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu up and embraced him. As they embraced shoulder to shoulder, they both began to cry in ecstasy. Text 291. Shaneke avesha chadi dunhara darya haila. Ishvara Purira Sambandha Gosani Janaila. Shaneke. After just a few moments, Avesha, ecstasy, Chadi, giving up, Dunhara, of both of them, Dharya, patience. Haila, there was. Ishvarapurira, of Ishvarapuri. Sambandha, relationship. Gosani, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Janaila, disclosed. Translation. After some moments, they came to their senses and became patient. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu then informed Sri Rangapuri about his relationship with Ishvara Puri. Text 292. Abhuta Premera Vanya Dunhara Utalila. Dunhe Manya Kari Duke Anande Vishala. Synonyms. Adbhuta, wonderful. Premera, of love of Godhead. Vanya, inundation. Dunhara, of both of them. Uttailila, arose. Dunhe, both of them. Manya Kari, offering respect. Dunhe, both of them. Anande, with great happiness. Vasila, sat down. Translation. They were both inundated by the wonderful ecstasy of love that was aroused in them. Finally, they sat down and respectfully began to converse. So when you meet someone after a long time, like you see at the airport, people are running to each other and they're hugging, and the little grandchild is running into the grandparents' arms, and it's quite emotional. It's very overwhelming. So we have emotions because the Lord has emotions. So here the Lord is seeing his very dear friend, and they both are so ecstatic that they're hugging and hugging. And then they finally sit down and start talking. So text 29. Dui jane Krishna katha kahera tridine. Emate ganaila pancha sutta dine. Synonyms. Dui jane, both the persons. Krishna Katha, topics of Krishna. Kahe, speak. Ratri dine, day and night. Emate, in this way. Gonaila, past. Panchasata, 5 to 7. Dine, days. Translation. In this way, they discussed topics about Lord Krishna continually for 5 to 7 days. Text 294. Kautuke puri tanre puchila janmastana. Gosani kotuke keha Navadvipa Nam. Synonyms. Kotake, out of curiosity. Puri, Sri Rangapuri. Tanre, him. Puchila, asked. Janmastana, the place of birth. Gosani, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Kotuke, as a matter of course. Kahena, said. Navadvipe, Navadvip. Nama, name. Translation, out of curiosity, Sri Rangapuri asked Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu about his birthplace. And the Lord informed him that it was Navadvip Dham. Text 29. Shri Madhava Purira Sange Shri Rangapuri Purva Ascha Chila Teho Nadia Nagari. Synonyms. Sri Madhavendra Puri, Sange. Sri Madhava Purira Sange. With Sri Madhavendra Puri. Sri Rangapuri, Purve, formerly. Aischa Chila, name, came. De Tenho, he. Nadia Nagari, to the city of Nadia. Translation, Sri Rangapuri had formerly gone to Navadvip with Sri Madhavendra Puri, and he therefore remembered the incidents that had taken place there. Do you want to sing the verse? If you like. You don't have to.
Jagannatha Mishra Gare Bhiksha Ye Karila Apurva Mochara Ghanta Tahan Ye Kaila.
Synonyms. Jagannath Mishra Gare. In the house of Sri Jagannath Mishra. Sorry. Bhiksha, lunch. Yea, that. Karila, took. Apurva, unprecedented. Mochara Ganta, curry made of plantain flowers. Tahan, there. Yea, that. Kaila, ate. Translation, as soon as Sri Rangapuri recalled Navadvip, he also recalled accompanying Sri Madhavendra Puri to the house of Jagannath Mishra, where Rangapuri had taken lunch. He even remembered the taste of an unprecedented curry made of banana flowers. So we recently went to Toronto. They had a festival there. And in Toronto, they have this cook. His name is Dwarkanath Das. And he cooks like you've never tasted. I mean, he made all kinds of offerings to the deities. He made these parathas. They were potato parathas that were just amazing. And they were like this big. And then when they served the devotees, they had big chunks of butter to go on top of the paratha. And then the next day, he made offerings of uttapam. They were just so soft and fluffy. And if you have ever had uttapams made by our dear cook, Champakalata, they're just amazing. She uses farina with yogurt and spices, and they're just soft. So in Toronto Yatra, we had feast after feast after feast. And then they took us to the restaurant, and we had hot jalebis, and so many like kachoris and samosas, and these exotic sabjis with like coconut and eggplant, and it was phenomenal. I mean, I could move to Toronto just to have their parathas, but it was so wonderful. And there were several hundred devotees there, and they were from all over Canada. And it was like a reunion. It was Radhastami's festival, beautiful Radhastami festival. And the devotees had decorated the temple room. It was like for also reunion. So the devotees had decorated the temple room with all kinds of floral arrangements. And then they had 300 pictures of the Toronto Yatra over the years and the devotees hanging over the balcony, because Toronto has a balcony. So there was picture after picture of, devotees and all kinds of, situations, and Prabhupada's installing the deities, Shri Shri Radha Kirti Gopinath. And then I saw devotees I hadn't seen since 1973. You all probably weren't born before then. But it was a very wonderful experience to see the devotees and meet them. And so we had lots of memories. And the devotees got arrested a lot in the old days because they were always doing outrageous things. There was one, they were out on Sankirtan, and there was this one person, and she was saying, they tried to give her a book. She goes, God is dead. And so the devotee who heard that had just heard a lecture from Prabhupada who was saying, if someone says that God is dead, then you should beat them on the head with your shoe. So the devotee takes off his shoe and starts beating this lady on the head with the shoe. And she's like screaming, and the police come, and he gets arrested. And so then he realizes, oh my God, I've been a fool, Prabhupada was, that Prabhupada can do that, but not me. So then he got the bright idea, because he's a very good cook. He got the bright idea of making a big, huge tray of prasadam. He had samosas, kachoris, chutney, chapatis, sabji, and he brought it to her because they had to have a first court date and then a later court date. So he brings this huge tray of prasadam, and he says, ma'am, I'm so sorry. He said, I'm so stupid, I just didn't get it. So she starts eating, the preps, and she keeps eating, and she eats the whole thing. And so then the court day came, and so the judge is there, and then the lady who said, that she thought that God is not dead anymore. So she said, Your Honor, I'd like to drop the charges because these kids are actually nice kids, and they made a mistake. So then the judge drops the charges, and everybody goes home happy. But the devotees were pretty wild. I remember one time in Toronto that we had a kitchen. We had a kitchen that had a back entrance, and then all the boga was kept in the back area in that shelves, and then they had like a cooler filled with butter, because we made tons of butter and ghee and all kinds of halava. Halava was the most important thing in our lives. And so one day a guy breaks into the back of the temple, and he starts stealing all the butter. And he has this big bag, and he's filling it up with butter. And then the devotees come back, and they see him. How dare you steal Krishna's butter? He's the only butter thief, not you. So they start chasing the guy. And of course, he drops the butter. And they catch up to him. Oh my Krishna, he really got it. And then the police came, and the police chastised the devotees and said, look you're just regular citizens. You're not the police force. He said, you can't beat up people for stealing your butter. It was very funny. Well, it wasn't funny because the guy had to go to the hospital. But that wasn't funny. But anyways, he never tried to steal butter again. So, and also I was thinking of one story. We'll end up here, in a few minutes. But I was thinking of one story that I heard Srila Prabhupada say directly. It was a tape lecture. And Srila Prabhupada, as a young grihasta, he worked for Bose Laboratories, and he would travel all over. And he was on the train a lot. And he would do his paperwork, he would do his mantra, he would do his chanting. Prabhupada had a system. 4 rounds in the morning, 4 rounds before breakfast, 4 rounds before lunch, 4 rounds before dinner. And then he got his rounds done. And he was very, loyal to this program. He liked it very much because he was always traveling. So Prabhupada told this story. He said one day he was traveling on the train and there were some young girls on the train. And they were like 14, 15, and they were, what do young girls do? They laugh, they giggle, they just have fun. So then another girl gets on the train. This story is about kind of like inner values and determination. So another girl gets on the train, and she's like a different kind of person. She's like 14, and she has her head covered. She just has her head covered. And because that was her style, that was her preference. So she sits down next to the girls who are giggling and laughing. And then the girls were real, cheeky. So they reached over, pulled off her head covering. And so then she puts it back on. So Prabhupada's watching them because he studies, people. And so then they did it again. They pulled down her sari, covering her head. So she puts it back on. So Prabhupada's watching, and then, so they did it again. Well, the third time they took off her sari covering for her head, she turns around, she slaps the girl in the face. So Prabhupada started laughing because the girls were being real nonsense. They weren't respecting this young girl who wanted to cover her head. So Prabhupada was telling this story about sticking to your guns, about sticking up for what you believe in. Doesn't matter. I mean, it's not just that it's the head covering, but it was just in general to stick with your beliefs and your core values and your strength. And there's another story about head coverings that I want to tell. It's about Lord Nityananda Prabhu. And when he went to the home of Janava, then she received him, was serving him prasadam, all kinds of beautiful offerings. The father was there. And so then her younger sister, who knows her name? Vasudha. So Vasudha came and she was serving prasadam. And as she was serving prasadam, her head covering fell off. So she immediately manifested 2 extra arms and covered her head again, and then served the prasadam. So here's this girl manifesting a 4-arm feature in front of Lord Nityananda. So Lord Nityananda looks at the father and said, I want to marry this girl too. So he married both sisters because she was his devotee. And then I remember in 2001 when we had the attacks on the World Trade Center. And so in this situation, as soon as the attacks happened, all the leaders told us, don't cover your head. Take off your head covering. Don't cover your head. Whereas previously, because they didn't want us connected with, people who cover their heads and then saying they're doing something on religious basis. Because previously, we always covered our head. No questions asked. Just cover your head. That was it. So as soon as that 9/11 happened, they told us, do not cover your head again. Just leave it. So circumstances, times, situations. So thank you for joining us here and for listening to the wonderful travels of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, tour of South India. And let's remember, and I wanted to thank the devotees for their beautiful festival on, of course, Radhastami, but I wasn't here for it, but I heard it was beautiful. And for Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Rupanuga Prabhu gave a wonderful reading. It was a very active, beautiful, dramatic reading about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then Hare Krishna. And then they had a wonderful feast, wonderful kirtan, and thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Time for prasadam.